Hi, it's Bumbleberry again, and we're back to see what Rabbit could teach us. She apparently knew a lot about magic, so maybe that would be able to help me defend myself and help me win this war. Still, the excitement of the situation was hard to ignore. What would Rabbit teach me? Would it be something to do with nature? With fire? With animals? There were 100 things it could have been in the possibility, and I was eager to eventually find out and know. I was guided to a large hall, originally blocked off for Sarah and Diana's training. However, because my safety became the priority, Rabbit and I were given the room to use to train and to practice. That was awfully nice. As I peered into the space, I saw Rabbit face and smile at me.
There you are. Come on in.
I smiled, happy to know how patient and kind she was, or at least pretended herself to be. I stepped into the room and walked towards her, taking in the space and how large it was. Hello, Rabbit. Let's fight things today. Nice room.
Isn't it? It's perfect for what I have in mind to teach you.
You're making me nervous. There it was. My eagerness began to bounce in my chest as I grinned at Rabbit, excited. What do you plan to teach me? To turn into a bunny rabbit? To turn into a cockroach? Rabbit giggled at me, which made me tilt my head a bit in confusion. Was what I said funny?
I plan to teach you how to properly defend yourself. To do that, I need to see what you can do with your spirit.
I want to, attack things, though, too. Hypothetically speaking, so that I can protect Eric. I nodded and stood at attention, ready for my first lesson. Rabbit nodded back to me before stepping back and pointing her staff at the ground between us. The orb on her staff began to glow a bright blue color as a large wisp snaked out from it into the air. I watched in awe as it took shape from being a simple cloud of magical smoke to being a large blue misty bear. I just imagined him as like a Care Bear, I don't know why. Ooh, he's like a real bear. Attack! 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 He wants hugs. He has nice eyes. Whoa! I instantly jumped back, surprised at the roar it let loose in intimidation. Rabbit brought her staff back to her side as the bear got onto all four of its paws, growling in my direction. So this is like a Patronus?
This is an animal guardian, a personification of your inner strength and power.
Yep.
Once summoned, it will protect you with their life.
Patronus! Look how knowledgeable she is. She's just like, and I know all the things. I stared at the bear before me, watching it peer into my soul with its pure white eyes and pant in anger. Rabbit had a bear hiding inside of her? That was shocking to say the least. As terrible as it was, I imagined her to have a rabbit spirit. Rabbit placed her hand on her chest and nodded to me.
Focus on your spirit. Feel it try to take shape and release it.
Okay. I looked down at my chest before closing my eyes and laying a hand over my heart. I had to focus on my spirit. It was strange to imagine doing so, but I attempted it anyway. What do you guys think you would be? I don't know what I would be. I'd like to think I'd be a bear, but I don't know. I could be a chinchilla, for all I know. It's a surprise. As I stood there, I could feel energy flow within my body, ebbing and weaving through my veins like a bloodstream. It felt incredibly odd to feel such sensations, but I continued to focus on my soul, trying to do as Rabbit asked. At last, I latched onto a strange feeling in my chest, growing larger and larger with each breath I took. Soon it became unbearable to keep inside. I held my hand out, feeling it want to be released, and watched in shock as a white and lavender mist jutted out from my palm and landed on the floor, revealing... What should I be? I don't want to be a rabbit. I either want to be a lion or a wolf. What do you guys think? Lannister? Yeah, let's be a Lannister. I stared wide-eyed as the mist formed into a grand lion who seemed to be as big as the bear, if not bigger. How the heck did that happen? Despite its form being gaseous and ethereal, the fur that covered its body was glimmering in lavender, while its claws, bared teeth, majestic mane, and eyes were a pure white compared to the bluish white of the bear. So is this like lion from Steven Universe? Or it's like pinkish lavender and fabulous? It let out a large roar in reply to the sight of the bear, standing proud and ready to attack on my command. Rabbit seemed surprised as well, gripping her staff in an instinctual fear before inhaling deeply and taking sight of my animal guardian.
Very good. Your spirit is strong.
Well, obviously. I like the juxtaposition of the two animal eyes. That's really pretty. I don't know. I smiled, happy to know that the size signified my power. I was shocked that I was able to match Rabbit's guardian, but the thought went away as Rabbit pointed her staff at me.
Attack!
Upon her command, the bear reared it back on its hind legs and let out a large roar before charging at my guardian. I quickly followed suit. Go! This is like a Pokemon battle. My guardian squatted on its forelimbs before pouncing off the ground and charging forward as well. Both animals rammed their heads together and pressed against each other before the bear took a swipe at my guardian, forcing it to the side. I didn't expect to be affected by it, but the feeling of pain hit my chest hard internally. What the heck happened? Did the attack on my guardian actually affect me? I didn't get time to think on it, however. I became open as the bear continued to rush forward, naming me as its target. Before it could reach me, however, my guardian leapt through the air and swiped his claws at the bear's neck, causing it to fall to the side. I watched and even she's surprised, like, what? How could you face me? I watched in disbelief as my guardian took the bear down, grab it its neck in its teeth and shaking violently and causing the bear to release a roar of pain. Rabbit, on the other hand, gripped her neck and let out a yelp of pain. Rabbit! I couldn't say any more before my lion became victim to one of the bear's claws slamming into its own body, forcing it off with a whine. I felt a deep jab in my shoulder in the same spot where the lion was hit, causing me to grip my arm and rub over the pain. The bear got up on its feet, as did my guardian, and they snarled at each other, circling one another to wind up with the bear with the bear back in front of Rabbit and my guardian in front of me. I was astonished at the event, straightening up and taking in what had happened. Rabbit let out a pained smile before tapping her staff beside her.
Heel!
The bear, who was growling before, stopped and simply kept a cold eye on my guardian, remaining in place as Rabbit stepped up beside it.
This is the power of an animal guardian. They obey and protect, but they are still connected to our spirit. What pain they feel, we feel as well.
Cool beans. I grimaced, calling for my guardian to stand down as well. While it seemed really cool and effective for protection, if the animal guardian became mortally wounded, the same would happen to me, or so I assumed. Rabbit lifted her head and rested it on the bear, showing that the guardian had physical weight, and patted over its fur. Oh, that's adorable!
However, we can only feel its pain. We do not bleed or die if our guardians are attacked and killed.
That's so sad, though. They die? It's a bit of a relief. Rabbit rubbed her neck and smiled at me.
I will say, your guardian is quite strong for having never been summoned before.
I felt flattered that my spirit was able to impress Rabbit. I guess that was a plus towards this training. Rabbit walked forward and held her hand out to my guardian, who seemed wary at first. What would happen if I was a rabbit? Would it just be like intense, like meow, 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 meow? You know? I don't know. I have no idea what would happen. Maybe next time. Hey, letter. I didn't know why I was speaking to it casually, but something felt right about it. The animal was essentially a part of me, and I could feel that it understood me, regardless of what I said. The guardian calmed down and leaned its head towards Rabbit, who placed her hand on its head and ran her fingers along its fur.
Truly magnificent! I had only ever seen another guardian this large once before.
Whose was it? I smirked, looking to the bear. Your own, right? Rabbit shook her head to me, stopping her gesture on my animal.
No, from, Diana.
Really? She has an animal guardian? I had to stop myself from dropping my jaw. Diana was able to do this? Then again, I didn't think this kind of magic was limited to just me and Rabbit. Was any magic truly bound to only one demon type? Rabbit acknowledged my facial expressions with a slight smile.
She has a very powerful guardian. I'm surprised she doesn't use it.
That's because I don't need to.
Ooh, Diana. Fierce. As Rabbit and I turned our heads to see Diana by the doorway, smiling at both of us, as she walked in, she observed our animals and nodded, visually impressed.
I assume everything is going well?
Great, actually. Look at the size of her animal guardian.
If I had chosen the bunny, they would have been so disappointed. Diana walked over and sized up my animal with her eyes, nodding in agreement with Rabbit's excitement.
Quite impressive. I expect good things to come from this training.
What's your animal guardian? Diana looked over at me in slight surprise before smirking a bit and bringing up 2 fingers near her head. As she swung them to point at the wall, a purple mist flew from her fingers and spiraled into the air before landing and slowly forming into a purple and black panther. Ah! It snarled as it took shape and swung its gaze over the room and its inhabitants. I was in awe at its size. It was larger than Rabbit's bear, which made me wonder how powerful Diana was. She walked over and ran her hand over its head, running her thumb over the bridge of its nose with a soft chuckle. I am so unsurprised that hers is a panther. That makes
a panther
absolute
guardian
sense.
and a snake familiar. How odd am I?
You have a snake familiar? A snake familiar? I grew confused at what Diana meant, but she simply smiled at me.
You don't wish for me to show you what I mean, dear. I promise you that.
You don't know me, Diana. I pressed my lips together, having been denied a chance to say something new. Ooh, I'm sorry. However, if Diana put it as a threat, I had to be cautious. After all, her spirit was visually larger than mine by the size of our guardian. Yes, if it's larger, it looks larger. Yes, I understand. As I looked to Rabbit, I was surprised to see a form of awe and envy in her eyes as she looked at Diana's animal. I guess that was why Diana was the leader of the rebellion, but why was Rabbit envious? Is she in love with Diana as well? Diana willed her guardian away, causing it to fade into the air like a cloud of smoke before turning back to me.
Well, if you don't mind, I must get back to work. There is a lot that needs to be done, and we have little time to do it.
Okay. Diana nodded to us both before turning to leave. However, Rabbit stepped forward.
Diana,
Oh, yes?
may I speak to you in private later, after I have finished training her for the day?
No. She's very busy. I naturally furrowed my eyebrows. What was she wanting to talk about with Diana? Diana seemed confused as well, looking back to Rabbit but nodding nonetheless.
Of course. I'll come here when you are finished.
Thank you.
Weird. Diana gave one more nod before turning back and leaving the room. I looked to Rabbit, curious as to what they had to talk about, but if it was important to speak in private, then it was a matter I should keep my nose out of. Rabbit shook her head and smiled at me.
Well now, where were we?
We were killing each other a little bit with some animals. I rolled my shoulders and looked to our two animal guardians, seeing them resting on the ground, patiently waiting for us. Were these really only used for battle? I looked back to Rabbit, curious to know the answer. Hey, Rabbit?
What is it?
Are these guardians only meant for battle and defense? Rabbit shook her head and walked over to her bear, petting it softly and making a low but happy grumble escape from it.
Think of these creatures as friends, whom we wish to protect us. A rabbit demon such as myself would benefit greatly from a bear companion.
Both the bear and the rabbit looked at me, hoping I understood. I looked to my own animal, confused as to why I was able to imagine what mine looked like. The intricacies of this magic seemed over my head, but I accepted it for now with a nod of slight understanding. Yeah, I have no idea what she's talking about, but that's fine. So we trained furiously, conserving energy, and we're exhausted. Go figure, and Matthew's already in the boudoir, ready to go. Huh? Matthew? What happened to him? However, what was odd about him being in the room was not that he was there before me, but that he was staring at the fire, eyes glazed over and almost a pale blue tint. Something was going on. And he has the blue collar of doom. No, Matthew, no! I have a lion who can help protect you now. Yeah, he looks zombified. I don't know what happened to our little precious boy. I walked over and placed my hand on Matthew's shoulder, slowly walking around him to look directly into his eyes. It was almost creepy to see, but he seemed almost dead. Matthew? I gently shook his body, trying to snap him out of whatever trance he was under, but gasped as I spotted a blue ring around his neck. You should give him a kiss on the cheek. Just be like, mwah. You know, Sleeping Beauty, it worked for her. As I did, the air around me became colder and a little darker. What was going on? Panicked, I look around, trying to pin down what was causing this.
I...
Matthew? Matthew's voice brought me back to him. Hearing his voice droll out of his mouth was like emotional doll. Oh, emotionless doll. I gripped Matthew's shoulders tightly and shook him again. Dude, call for Diana. Matthew! Still nothing. Kiss him. I had to break him out of whatever spell was consuming his mind, and there was no way in heck I was going to smack him. Instead, I took his head into my hands and pulled him into a kiss, locking lips with him and shutting my eyes. I didn't understand what made me do this, but I was determined to make it work. Like I said, it worked for Sleeping Beauty. We can make it work for us. Yay, I waited and waited until finally Matthew wrapped his arms around me and leaned into the kiss, letting me know he possibly broke through. Yay! Oh, your little smoochy face. You're so serious. I opened my eyes slightly to see his eyes closed, but his arms around my waist were secure and loving, just like how I remembered. As I slowly pulled away, Matthew opened his eyes and revealed their lovely ocean blue color. Perfect. However, his cheeks were a lovely contrast of red.
Hi.
Does anyone else just love his voice? He's just so cheery. I smiled a bit, giggling. What happened? Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I was just looking at the fire. It's pretty warm.
You were possessed, FYI. Every part of me didn't believe him. Then again, something was wrong, and maybe Matthew was becoming a victim of it. I frowned and cupped his cheek, making him lean into it slightly. Are you sure? You looked like you were possessed. Matthew furrowed his eyebrows, unsure of what I meant. Did he really not remember? I now became concerned, desperate to know answers. Why was he acting so strangely? Matthew took my hands in his and held them gently, rubbing his thumbs over the tops of my hands.
Hey, is everything all right?
Well, for me it is. Almost. I almost glared. That was what I had asked him. I wasn't crazy. I knew that something was off, and I had to try to figure out what. I squeezed Matthew's hands instead. Matthew, I'm serious. You were staring at the fire, and your eyes just looked glazed and stuff. Pressing his lips together, he looked down, trying to discern what I meant, as if he didn't do what I suggested he did. I pulled his hands, now worried. I didn't want him to assume I was making things up. There would be, no reason for you to make things up. That's okay. You believe me, right? Matthew stared into my eyes, reading them as he nodded.
I do. I do. I don't know how to respond. I mean, I don't remember being in a trance.
Well, why would you? It's a trance, Matthew. As he said that, however, he suddenly curled over and held his head, hissing in pain. Matthew, are you okay? Matthew? Okay, we're okay. Everybody's cool. Nobody move. Quickly, Matthew collapsed onto his knees and gripped his head, digging in his fingers into his hair as I followed him down. Now I knew for sure something was definitely wrong. I cupped Matthew's face, trying to read his expression and trying to figure out what was wrong just from sight. A moment passed before Matthew let out a gasp of breath, opening his eyes wide and panting for some fresh air to enter his lungs. His eyes painted his fear as if he had just encountered a nightmare within the moment that passed. Matthew, what happened? Matthew wouldn't speak, furrowing his eyebrows and shaking his head.
I heard someone calling to me.
Probably your mom, dude, right? I mean, that would make sense. Calling to you. For a moment, I believed it to be his mother. Genius Bumbleberry strikes again. For a moment, I believed it to be his mother. Maybe he was hearing what I heard in the human world, but why didn't I hear it anymore? It made no sense. Matthew shook his head and gritted his teeth.
It sounded like my mother. But how could she...
I took Matthew's hands and held them to my chest, catching his attention. I'm sure that would. Hey, let's go ask the others about this. It's not too late to go to talk to them. Matthew suddenly shook his head and took his hands from mine, grasping my shoulders.
It's all right, really. I don't need their help. We can figure this out on our own.
Why would we? I mean, they're right there. Matthew. I had a really bad feeling about the situation. Matthew was getting put into a trance and then getting headaches and hearing his mother's voice. Why was he so reluctant to get the help of his brothers? I'm going to insist, Brosifino. This was too mysterious and dangerous. We needed the help. Matthew, we need to...
Please, just trust me, okay?
No. You crazy? Your health is at risk. Also, my freedom, because you will put me in a torture chamber and use me as your doll. I've seen it. I have future vision or something. Don't test me, boy. Matthew stared deep into my eyes, pleading silently for me to trust him. I bit my lip, still not completely sure that this was the right choice. As I slowly let out a whine of complaint, Matthew gripped harder on my shoulders. Not enough to hurt me, but enough to emphasize his point.
Please.
Matthew seemed adamant. Oh, I swallowed my nerves and nodded slowly, taking in a breath and letting out a sigh. I didn't even read that sentence ahead of time. That's hilarious. I am sighing in frustration at you, Matthew. Let's just have some cake and then talk out our problems with people who know what's happening. Matthew leaned forward and kissed my forehead, thankful that I was willing to trust him. However, trust wasn't the issue. I trusted Matthew very much. What I didn't trust was whatever was trying to influence him and hurt him. I didn't just want to leave him in this dark, and I didn't want us to hit a wall with this that could potentially hurt Matthew more or make him do something even more odd. I grimaced before standing up, helping Matthew up. Come on, let's head to bed. Matthew nodded, agreeing that right now sleep was something we probably needed. I led Matthew to the bed and helped him in, cuddling up to him and laying my head on his shoulder. Matthew?
Yeah?
Are you sure you'll be okay?
I'm sure. I promise, I'll figure this out in no time.
I nodded once more before closing my eyes. I had to let him try. If all else failed, I could just go to the others for help, but not unless it became dangerous. Dude, he had like a collar of evil around his neck. I feel like it's a little dangerous. You know, I don't know. And why wouldn't he say we can figure this out? Like, we're supposed to be working on this whole being trapped in the demon world together thing. If you're being possessed, I feel like as your fiancé, it is my duty to be informed and attempt to make a solution. Anyway, something felt wrong about this entire situation. First, there was something wrong with me, but now there was something wrong with Matthew? We had the worst luck. I agree. I expected the night to take me away into a world of slumber, but was quietly awoken by Simon poking my side with his knife. What? Oh my gosh, is he sleepwalking? I'm gonna freak out. Okay, Simon's waving his arms and pointing at the door, revealing it to be partially open with a familiar red eye peeking through it. What? What? I stared, suddenly wide-eyed, but Diana didn't move from her spot, knowing I spotted her. Does nobody lock their doors? Did she want me to go over there? Simon pulled at my hand, wanting me to go, so I snuck out of Matthew's arms and crept towards the door, causing Diana to back away from it and give me the space I needed to leave the room. Diana?
Is everything all right?
No. Where was this coming from? I furrowed my eyebrows. What do you mean? Diana pressed her lips together and looked into the room for a moment before looking back to me with a serious expression.
I was doing my usual routine around the castle and felt somewhat of a disturbance in the air, like something was trying to make contact with someone here. It was a weak wave, but...
I stared surprised. Someone was really trying to contact Matthew? I became overjoyed to know that it was that simple. Diana tilted her head at me, seeing my expression.
What? Did something happen?
Obviously, Diana. Don't give me that face. Look at her face. She's so grumpy. Oh my gosh, you have fabulous hair. You don't need to be that grumpy. Although her whole family was massacred, so maybe a little bit. Before I opened my mouth to speak, however, Matthew's plea echoed in my head. He wanted me to trust him. If I told Diana, I'd ruin his trust for me. I merely bit my lip, shaking my head. Are you kidding me? Why wasn't this a choice? I would totally tell her. Oh my goodness. No, I'm just surprised is all. Diana raised an eyebrow at me, but I didn't budge. I didn't want to be the one to say anything until Matthew needed me to. Despite it fighting against every moral code in my body, I had to put some trust in Matthew. Why? Why? Eventually, Diana nodded before turning to leave.
I apologize for disturbing your sleep. Please, have a good night.
Thanks for checking up on me, Dee. She left me alone in the hall. I stared, mildly flabbergasted at the fact that she simply let it go. However, would she look into it more? I had to admit that I hoped so. I returned to Matthew's arms that night, hoping everything would be okay. Oh my gosh. Okay, well that was a fantastic other episode. I want to keep playing, but we have to do increments and not do it all at once. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the episode as much as I did. What do you think? Is Mamala trying to possess him? Is the Demon Lord trying to possess him? Or are they just bringing out another side to him? Also, what do you think? Was the rabbit the correct choice? Do you like the lion? I'm having too much fun. I probably shouldn't have this much fun. But anyway, I'm actually enjoying this route more than Eric's, weirdly enough. I don't know why. It might just be because the spirit thing just wasn't captivating me as much because I knew it had to do with Diana, and it didn't really deal that much with Eric. It was just like, Eric wants to have sex with you. That's gross. And it's like, well, I mean, we're engaged and stuff. That kind of makes sense. And he's an incubus. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you're all having a great time. comment in the description or whatever, let me know how your life's going, how are you feeling about the boys, and have a great day. Stay sweet. Bye.